Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everyone. This is a question for parents of children pretty much of any age. Here's the question. Are you afraid of your child? Now, I know right away, most of us are going to say, no, it's a child. I'm an adult. Come on. What are you talking about? Think about that a little bit deeper. Be honest with yourself, because I'll bet you in some situations and scenarios, you're afraid of your child. We're going to talk about that today. I think this might be an epiphany for many. She is somebody that dispenses very valuable advice as a psychotherapist for children, adults, families, and all of that. I've learned so much ever since that we've gotten together with Susie Engel, who's back on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. I'm very well. Thank you, Steve. How are you?
Real good. Real good. And this topic, yes, I'm going to say I'm afraid of my child. What do I mean by that? And I believe as we go deeper in thinking about it, more things will present. But initially, for me, don't want to disappoint them. Whatever that, and that could be many different things.
Yes. Yeah.
But don't want to disappoint. And it's not like I want to be the cool dad. Well, sure, you want to be viewed in a very positive way with your kids, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about whatever the disappointment may be. Sometimes you need to, but by and large, I would say that I am afraid sometimes to disappoint my children. I admit it.
Yeah. And so oh boy. So disappointing our children could be viewed as, how am I conducting myself as an adult, as a leader, as a parent? Am I conducting myself with a sense of, I often say this in practically most of our podcasts, a sense of security and leadership and a foundation? Or am I reactive and floundering and fear-based and want to please my children? So that's one way to view what you just mentioned about disappointing our children, because we don't want to disappoint. We don't want to fail our children. We want to be a great example of a healthy adult. That's one part of what you just said. But what you're really saying is,
I'm afraid to hear this.
I want to make my children, and maybe I'm off, but I think a lot of parents have the concept, the conceptualization, the concept of, as a parent, I want to make my child happy.
Yes.
And if I don't make my child happy, then I may cause my child disappointment.
Yes.
Yes, that's what you were talking about, really.
100%. 100%. But I just want a disclaimer on that. It's not that I'm a pushover and whatever you want, you can have. Yeah. No, not at all. But it's
good.
Let's say you promised something came up. And life is going to be that way. And you should try to fulfill your obligations and your promises as much as possible. Life can happen. That would be a disappointment. And I try to never let that happen. Just one example. So I'm afraid of my child being disappointed. So I'll do whatever I need to do if I made an appointment, but sometimes you have to say no. Guess what happened? Something came up.
Yeah. So you want to set a great example. We all should work toward this, is set a great example and keep our word. That is being trustworthy. But if something comes up, if we're working full time and something comes up and I can't make it to something that I had hoped to do with my child, we want our children to also build resiliency.
Sure.
and a coping mechanism for disappointment and for the realities of those situations. And I like what you're saying in terms of parents keeping their word. But I think the broader problem with parents being afraid of their children is that they're afraid to say no. And then when the little kids are teensy weensy little ones, I'm not talking about a 2-year-old because that's typical for a 2-year-old to have a tantrum,
Sure.
but 3-year-olds and older, if a parent is afraid and just gives in because a parent doesn't want to deal with the tantrum or a parent just doesn't want to deal with the child's
Being
upset
disappointed,
or upset,
upset. Yeah.
then we
Yes.
have to learn to tolerate that because then the kids are going to learn not to tolerate upset.
I'm
The whole
completely on your page.
the
I
whole
get that.
family's a hot mess.
I'm with that, and that's why I
Yeah,
wanted to put that
good.
disclaimer in there that it's not that, being a pushover. And but
Right.
that's only one way that I can think of we may be quote unquote afraid of our child or children. What do you think are some of the other ways?
So being a pushover is huge. I
Yes.
mean, that is when parents are so unaware, and it's very common. So I'm not saying this in some sort of shaming way, but when parents are so unaware that that is how they're functioning, that they are afraid to say no to their child or set a boundary with their child and allow their child to feel whether it's upset or
Yes.
disappointment like you're talking about, or just plain frustration, which is on the low spectrum of anger. Frustration is healthy, but we have to learn to cope with frustration and not demand until our parents give in. And I know straight up who those parents are because
Yes.
it's just so obvious. And also the children develop a habit that they don't like about themselves. So we're doing a disservice to the child.
Ooh. Ooh. Okay. So let's look at that a little bit deeper. A parent is a pushover, right? Um, they may know that they are, but they just continue doing it. Do you feel on the back end, without their full awareness, that they almost hate themselves for it, or they almost have negative feelings toward themselves, maybe subconsciously, that comes from doing that, and it might not even be in the forefront?
I don't think that they have, yeah, it's totally not in the forefront.
Yeah.
But I think what this feeds into is on the child side, and then we'll go to the parent side. On the child side, the children may not like themselves because they want more or they want to get their way. And sometimes they may realize that they're not at the most mature level that they could be functioning, and they may start to not like themselves. And then
Wow.
there are some children who like that they got one over. And they grow up as adults to be very manipulative. Now, kids are
Hmm.
not manipulative. Kids are trying to get their psychosocial needs met, and they're just not manipulative. But they grow, but the ones who the parents are afraid of, who give in to them, and who are so unaware that they're not teaching the children life skills to cope with disappointment or boundaries or the word no. Those kids either really don't like themselves and are always squandering and nothing is enough because they don't feel like they're enough, or they know that they're getting one over and they don't have a good moral compass.
Wow.
The so
There's a
that's
lot
the
going on here that
kids.
I think as parents we didn't even realize. Like, I'm just going to give in to them. I don't want to hear it, blah, 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 blah. We don't realize the potential damage and what we're cultivating in our children
Oh,
in doing that.
and
Wow.
and it's totally unhelpful, and it's doing a disservice to the children. And then on the other side, the parents, when they're not conscious of wanting to please their children or wanting to make their children happy, they also start not liking their children. And
Mm.
then they become sometimes disconcerted because they're not liking their children, or they become angry with their children. And that's just a bad situation.
Are you saying, essentially resentful of their children, even though they created it, the parent?
They don't know that they created it, but
Exactly.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I sure wouldn't want to not like my child because we have a long life ahead of us.
You're not like your child at the hands of you, the parent. You create,
Yes.
like as they say, and I mean this loosely here, but we've heard the phrase before. You've created a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I think
Uh,
that that's the bottom line. And I have a lot of parents who come to me, some who have teenagers and some who just are grappling with a 3-year-old.
ooh,
And I say you two come in if it's a couple. If not, if it's a single parent, that's fine too. But if it's a couple, come together
yeah.
because I'm not going to depend on one parent to translate. Like, mm-mm. And also, it's good. The process isn't a shaming process. The process is I'm just calling out what I'm assessing in an honest, secure way so the parents aren't defensive necessarily, and they can start taking down their unconscious and become aware of what they're doing every day.
I'm the fly on the wall with those two parents in your office, and I'm almost hearing, yeah, well, you let her do this. And I tell you we shouldn't be doing that. Well, oh, really? What about the time that you let her do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then that leads to, and you and I have spoken about this, that leads to deeper, broader issues. When parents come because they're upset about what's happening with their 3-year-old, and essentially the first thing that I can say to them is, wow, the 3-year-old in the family, and maybe they even have other kids, the 3-year-old is running the household. And
Yeah.
let me tell you, there's no 3-year-old, there's no 7-year-old, and there's no 17-year-old who wants to be running a household. They want parents who are regulated, who are secure, who know how to run the household. And that gives them a sense of security and foundation of trust.
Mm.
That gets the parents a little bit like, oh. And sometimes the pattern of them interacting gets into the arguing, but that goes back to their own attachment patterns. And I get into that with them too, but that's not today's discussion.
But isn't it amazing? You know, and this is all real. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
How you may want to give your child some freedom, some latitude in situations, but the more you realize when you put up the boundaries and you reel it back in, how it is eventually for the better. Can be uncomfortable as a parent at first, laying down the law, if you will. But in my and it took time to figure this out. That's what they want. They need and want
yes.
structure,
And
right?
they feel good. I once worked with an 11-year-old boy. So he kind of looked like a 10-year-old, but he was 11. He was really just a gorgeous child, right? And the parents were really struggling because they were worried about his addiction to his devices. And this is a while ago. This is like 10, 15 years ago. And the dad literally said to me, I think I'm just going to have to, and the cell phones and the tablets, it's a toxic business model. It is designed for addiction. So I don't think that he's wrong to worry, or the parents are wrong to worry about the kid's addiction because that's the model of the business. It's just a toxic business model.
Yeah.
But the issue is the dad was convinced that when he set a boundary about time spent on the device per day when this was limitless until now, that he would have to take all of his vacation time and literally be home with his child to help him detox from the electronics. And so I said, I don't think so. I think you don't have enough faith in your child. And I think the child is going to adjust a lot better than you think. And if not, you're going to have a plan when he has a tantrum to be regulated and to stick to your uh, plan or protocol and just power through it for your own sake as a parent. And then the child will get used to this quicker. And
Mm.
guess what? They came in the next week and I asked the child, How was your week?" He said, Dad and Mom talked to me and I knew they were heading in this direction. And quite frankly, it was the best week I've had in a couple of years. I felt really creative. I
Wow.
wrote some music. I practiced my bass guitar, and I haven't been practicing for a really long time. And I really feel good. And the parents were just shocked that they didn't have to take vacation time. So it's much easier to set boundaries than just not cause um, a challenge for your children.
And not to say it's not going to be a little challenge in the beginning.
And
Been
and right.
been there, done that. My son, who by the way is now a sophomore in college, and all that device time that I kind of bucked a little bit. He's studying cybersecurity, so
Great.
like let him do that. But
Beautiful.
when I squelched the screen time, it was like an addiction. Like you're taking away what my lifeblood here. It can be a
It's
little uncomfortable, but it's better on the back end.
Yes. And the little children who are growing up not knowing how to be considerate in a family dynamic.
Mm.
If I want a bowl of ice cream, I'm taught, "Oh, I would like a bowl of ice cream. Would anybody else like a bowl of ice cream? And let's serve everybody else first." And that's called consideration. Oh, I have a kids group, and a lot of times I'll ask, "Did you ask your caregiver if they're adopted or whoever their caregivers are? Did you ask your parents if you can help them with something?" And some of the kids look at me like I've got a third eye. Like they would just like ask if I can help with anything, and that becomes part of our goal in
Yeah.
the children's group to start learning how to be considerate of others. And if you see something, it's not a petty thing. Well, it wasn't my cereal bowl. It's like, no, it's the family sink. Like everybody can clear the sink in the kitchen.
So, what are other ways that we may be afraid of our child or children? Now, we identified a few here. Are there other ones?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of uh, establishing rewards that
Hmm.
backfire for parents.
Oh, how do you mean?
So, well, I mean, and consequences too. I mean, I'm just not into it. I think that a lot of children are rewarded for doing things that ought to be just like expected of them.
Well,
And
okay, that's a classic situation, and I read a study recently, and I could recall it and look it up because I save everything, where Gen Z is now expecting praise here, there, everywhere. We should be praised at work for a good job,
of
but
course, but
they've
that's
been conditioned. And if you remember, like, I don't know, go back 10, 15 years or whatever it might be, there, could be an athletic event. And even though you didn't score high, everybody gets a trophy. No,
well, that's
no.
what I'm speaking to that. I'm
Yes.
speaking to praise for doing things that should be expected, but also in if I am in a learning process as a child and I know I did a good job, external reward sucks the life out of internal fulfillment.
So you mean if you're looking for external reward, if you're looking for it, it takes it away from you
I feel
validating yourself.
I feel really good about myself. Like I figured out the Rubik's Cube. I figured out the Rubik's Cube isn't a good example, but I
No, but I
figured
got you.
out how to do my homework without being told. I figured out how to do my morning routine without a list and rewards for it. I figured out, and that gives an individual a good feeling. Now, um, I am saying the external rewards blindside that whole inner fulfillment.
Well,
Because then kids do things, and I'm just going to say this sentence, kids do things wondering, what am I going to get for it? And if I don't hear what I'm going to get for it, I'm not going to do it. And that becomes a life pattern.
but that's not to say you shouldn't get or expect a reward when you do a truly remarkable job. Not
yeah.
that maybe not to
I'm all
expect it,
for
but it'd be nice to hear it. But again, back to the fundamental here that you need to pacify yourself and just say to yourself, yeah, I ace that, man. I'm good.
And not pacify, but literally, like a lot of people apologize and say, oh, I feel conceited if I feel good about something. That
Wow,
is just that is just like a
agreed.
disconnect.
And that's
That,
where it goes wrong.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
but to if somebody does something remarkable, people are going to recognize it. And if that person already feels right about themselves, then they're going to say, yes, I like the art I produced too.
yep.
I like that I was behind in my sports event and we pulled through and won. And the crowds or the people are proud, or the coach is proud of you.
But even if you
That's
didn't win,
reward.
let's say you were down many points and you came back and you didn't win, but you came, you did well. You did well. By the way,
Beautiful.
just out, this is within a day. In a new survey, 76% of managers say Gen Z employees need more praise than older generations do. And 58% say Gen Zers want praise even when they fail. Those kids who grew up getting participation trophies have entered the workforce and surprise, they really like to be celebrated even when they mess up.
Yeah,
Believe this.
you know what the word is? They're infantilized. And I don't mean the whole Gen Z. I just mean when children are not brought up without the parents being afraid of them, they learn to get along in life. And when they are rewarded or consequent, it becomes this whole problem of infantilization. I mean, they can't act adult. They can't, but even children, they can't act like their best 9-year-old self, their best 3-year-old self. Clean up before you pull out another toy.
Yep.
Put the Legos in the bucket. Of course.
Because you weren't taught that. That's it.
Yeah.
Um, Fabulous talk today. Got it. We're out of time. So clear for so many parents. And I have to imagine every parent is inside in some degree or another saying, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. No judgment. It just is what it
No,
is. It just is
no,
what it
but
is.
there's always time to correct and improve. And this is all of our discussions are not about guilting or shaming somebody. It's about personal development. You and I talk about that.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah,
And I
no,
had a conversation with somebody the other day about parenting, and it went back to when we all grew up. And you remember that phrase, like when your parent looked at you a certain way, it was like the look, like
just the look.
just the look,
Love
right?
it.
I agree.
Message received.
That's it. And you don't pull a look out unless you're as a parent, unless you really, really need to pull a look out. But all it is just one, and that's it. It's
Right. And because it's so rare, maybe we were brought up with enough boundaries that we really did conduct ourselves pretty well.
You didn't need to pull it out that often.
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah. Your website, susanengel-lcsw.com, correct?
Correct.
Always wonderful talking with you. You are the mirror. And a lot of these things that we don't want to admit in ourselves, but we actually need to.
You should look at. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, we'll catch up soon. Coming right
Thank
back.
you.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.